Hi, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Almost at Thursday. Happy Wednesday, and welcome to another Book Corner live from East Texas. I am your host, DC Gomez, and I'm so thrilled you guys are joining me today. I have an amazing guest, a dear friend of mine who's going to be joining us today, so I can't wait to bring her on. But before I actually join us in there, if you're new or you're just watching us for the first time, remember we come live every Wednesday to bring you brand new books that have been out or just recently released within the last 90 days. I am DC Gomez, a USA Today bestselling author. I'm also a podcaster, host, and obviously your host for the night who also can't wait to chit chat with you guys. For things that you guys have been familiar to get a little bit more in tune with me, I got a couple things coming out this week. So Fiesta Nights, for anybody who's been following, tomorrow is going to kick off Hispanic Heritage Month for the month. So Fiesta Nights is a celebration of all of our cultures. So if you're looking for a fun anthology, especially super cheap for $2.99, over 10 authors in here, check it out. I also have coming up next month, let me give you a little bit insight. My next novel is coming out. If you like urban fantasy, some assassins, and a little bit of madness, you gotta go check out My Fabulous, The Traitor. A little bit sexy, a little bit fun, all sorts of amazing things. But let's start because you guys are here to see the amazing CJ Patterson who's here. So let me bring my dear friend along and let's get us started. Hi, sweetie, how
Hi.
are you?
Good, and it's Peterson.
I have talked so fast. I'm like, wait. As you can tell, it's like I have it right in my characters. I have not completely destroyed your name.
No,
Welcome
that's
to
okay.
my wall. How are you
Thank you.
doing today?
I am doing very well.
Sweetie,
Thank you.
congratulations on the new release. I am so thrilled for you. For anybody watching, the first book we're going to talk about is Chain Reaction, is my fabulous friend's new book. I'm so excited. I can't wait. So come on, bring us on. What is this book about? What is this story? Tell us everything about it.
Well, Chain Reaction is my first shot at doing anything that was sort of historical fiction-y-ish. A lot of my stuff have been Christian fiction, sci-fi or paranormal. I tell people it's not your mama's Christian fiction. So I thought I wanted to challenge myself. Being a pantser, because usually people are planners or pantsers, I wanted to kind of challenge myself because historical fiction you can't just write from the seat of your pants. You actually there are some hard and fasts. And so I wanted to kind of challenge myself and see, what we could do. So my big what if question is what would you do to save future generations of your family? So what I did was a reversed butterfly effect. So this gentleman comes back in time to his great 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 grandmother, and they go back in time to change their family line on purpose.
Okay.
So their family line is kind of littered with dying young, criminal activity, all sorts of interesting, kind of shady characters. But they're also known for not having big families. So by the time they got to his generation, he was the last one.
Okay.
And so they're trying to fix that. So they go to 1813, where it's the Battle of Put in Bay / Lake Erie, and then 1922, and then 1987.
Why did you pick these dates? Let's jump into that. Why these specifically dates? Are we matching them with major historical events, or you just decided I like these dates and this is what we're going to go with? What is the
Well,
meaning?
1813, I'm a history buff anyway, but 1813 was the Battle of Put in Bay. Oliver Hazard Perry is the one who helped win that battle, and basically he turned the war at the time for the Americans. And the British were dominating, and this kind of hit them a blow, and it ended that war a lot quicker. So, according to this timeline, though, their ancestor killed Oliver Hazard Perry just prior to the Battle of Put in Bay, so the Americans lost. So, that particular battle was longer than it should have been. So, in helping their ancestor to not kill him and to teach him that there's another way besides anger, he was able to also save Oliver Hazard Perry, and it turned the Battle of Put in Bay.
Okay.
So, it put it back on track. 1922, I love the 1920s. And their ancestor at the time is a rum runner for Speakeasy. And so they have to stop her because there's a local gang. Her boyfriend has kind of encroached on their territory, and they're sending the message by literally killing the messenger, which is her. And so they're trying to get her to obviously change and
Okay.
not do that run. So then in 1987, I wanted to do something in the 80s, and I looked up like big events in the 80s. There was this massive plane crash in Michigan in 1987 where the only sole survivor was a 4-year-old girl. So I put it in the story that the family was initially on that airplane. So their goal is to get them to not go on the airplane.
Okay.
The other thing I did was um, the original guy in, she was not a Christian. So the original guy in 1813 introduced her to Jesus and his message. Then in 1922, she explores it further. And then in 1987, she explores it a lot further and she notices that the message, the central message never changes, just the way it's presented. So it kind of takes you through time. Now, the other thing I did was it's mentioned in the story about them going back to 1650 Ireland and fixing a certain situation.
Okay.
And so that particular situation is not in this book. However, Texas Sisters Press's holiday anthology is coming out in November. And that particular story is called The Christmas That Almost Wasn't. It was when Cromwell was outlawing Christmas in Ireland, and they're trying to bring Christmas to the clan. And so they kind of play back off on each other.
So I love what you're doing. I also think it's kind of fun that you decided to do some outlining because this is not your style. So this is really, really exciting to watch you say, "Oh my God, I gotta have to work on this part." What was the what was the
Some
hardest part?
things were hard and fast, and some things were just okay. I did the research and just did the story and had a little bit of creative liberty. But when you're dealing with like a war that's already, everything is
Mhm.
documented, I had to actually look up ships. I had to look up what Oliver Hazard Perry said, and they're literally in here. So there's different things that I actually had to do. The airplane crash. I had to literally look up, okay, what was going on? That was when the GM plant was closing. Well, was that the reason why they got in the plane? Is that the reason why they were going to, because this flight was going to Arizona? Is that the reason why they were going there? So I actually had to research some of that stuff. And for a panner, that was a little stressful, not going to lie. But I like a challenge. And this is one I haven't touched yet.
You are a multi-genre author, so you explore many things in many different areas. And you don't
Mhm.
mind playing with different genres. So I'm absolutely not surprised that you did historical fictions. I'm not. This is absolutely like so up your alley. So excited to see you taking this on and kind of just playing with this entire thing and being able to just kind of say, okay, I got this. So
Yep, historical fiction with a sci fi twist.
I love it. I love the sci-fi twist to it, and I love the fact that you play with it. I'm making sure for our viewers who are watching us, I'm watching the chat. So if you guys have comments, make sure you put them in. We do have a comment from. I'm trying to make sure I read and do it very quickly. So Cbox says hi. Well, hello, dear. Thank you for joining us. If you have questions for me, if you have questions for TJ, if you have questions about the books and what we're covering, make sure you guys telling us. Make sure you guys adhere with us. I am excited to have our incredible guest with her brand new book, Chain Reaction. And since we have you on this show, let's jump to some of your other series. Let's kind of discuss this and see what you have because it's really
There's a
exciting.
lot.
There is a lot. So to keep us on track, because there is a lot, and make sure everybody gets a little taste of what you do, I have picked kind of the first books in some of these series. So I want
Okay.
you to kind of walk us through this. What is this book's about and what are this series as a whole? So I'm going to start with your last one to come out. Your
Mhm.
last series that you just completed is Appointed Time, and this is book one. Tell me, what is this about? Bring us into this journey.
Okay, again, sci-fi geek. I own it. I'm a geek. I own it.
Love
And
it.
so for
Love it.
me, I like a lot of sci-fi. So the Sands of Time trilogy is kind of, I explain it as Stranger Things minus the Mind Flayer stuff meets X-Men. So there's this professor who's been trying to produce this gene in babies, and he's doing it under the guise of a fertility clinic. He's picking women with little to no family, and then he's seeding the experiments, which makes him legally the father if something, happens to the mom. Well, it's taken him 20 years, and he finally gets this gene to generate, and the moms die, of mysterious causes. He says it's labeled as natural, but we all know it's not. So there are two nurses that figure out what's going on. There's 4 babies born, so they can only take two. So they kidnap two of the babies, leaving two of them there, and they raise them in a small East Texas town called Willow Bend. And so basically at that point, it's a nature versus nurture. So they homeschool them, they protect them, but try imagining raising a baby who has gifts and you don't necessarily know what gifts they have. until it manifests. So, for example, the one's a telekinetic. She's like, I think, a year old, and there's a bottle floating in the air. Is how they figured that out. So it's kind of, fun. But when they reach the appointed time, the professor sends his two strongest to get those two
Okay.
because he's known all this time where they were. It was kind of like he was almost including it as part of the experiment. And so they go to try to, they're supposed to bring them back. What he doesn't know is that the two that are in Texas are actually the strongest. The telekinetic is the strongest telekinetic that's in the group. It ends up there's basically a kid for every letter of the alphabet.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And so there's one group in Maine, which is the main campus. There's a group in Wyoming, and there's a group in Oregon. And when they figure out that they have more siblings, at that point, it's the ultimate creator versus the creative because they're trying to get these kids from their creator who thinks he's a god because he's created these kids. And technically, he's the most powerful man on the planet if he can keep them under his thumb.
Okay.
So
I
I tell people that it starts blowing up in Willow Bend in appointed time. Things start exploding in Race Against Time, and then in Out of Time, everything goes nuclear.
We got 3 books. This is a trilogy, correct?
Hmm.
How much fun did you had creating these books? Because let's talk about it. It has so many dimensions, and you did
Hmm.
go all sorts of insane when it came to like, let me have fun with the science, let me have fun with the
Oh yeah.
what ifs. When you think of this series, what is your first thought? What is the first thing that pops into your head?
Besides fun and what I would totally love to do, um, that's kind of it. Again, the what if question: what would happen if somebody actually decided to create this? That's always the ultimate sci-fi question. And so with this one, a lot of times what I try to do in my series is I try to shine a little bit of a light on something and put a twist that somebody may not expect. This particular one, we have a friend named Eddie Hancock who's also an author. He's got spina bifida, so he's in a wheelchair. There's a character specifically named after him.
Oh.
And all I'm going to say is that particular character has a rather large surprise.
Ooh. I'm loving the fact that you're adding people you know, that you're adding family members and friends into these adventures you have. So that's really exciting to see it. Are you
Hmm.
doing this in all of your books or is it just like something like once in a while?
Well, sometimes certain people pop up where you just got to put them in a book. The one thing I asked him though is, can I make you a character in the book? And a lot of them are like, yes, but you cannot kill me because I'm kind of known of a little bit as a literary assassin. And I'm like, I can make it spectacular. I can make it awesome. Please let me kill you. I'm like, no.
That's kind of restricting, especially if you're known for creating these huge scenes and they're like, you just can't kill me. It's like, that's kind of
Yeah.
limiting the fun. But okay.
Well, like seasons have changed. I didn't have a lot of the background for police, so I interviewed 3 police officers.
Nice.
And one of them gave me a lot of information on like the training. I said, "Great, I'm going to make you the field training officer, the FTO." He goes, "Great, but you can't kill me." I'm like, "Really? Because that is a prime spot that I can make like really, really good."
Yeah.
I said, "I can make it memorable." He goes, "Nope, can't kill me, or you can't use my name." I'm like, "You suck."
So limiting. So limiting.
I
We do.
know. I'm like, "Come
I
on."
I do have a quick question from the chat, and I just wanted to know if you have any kids, which is actually going to play a little later as we get to the end of the series that I have. So if you're interested in answering that for us,
Sure. My husband has 2 twins. They're 28, and we have a
aw,
daughter who's 21.
love it. Okay, let's go down, continue down to your memory lane of how many series you have. The next one I pulled up is The Call to Duty. What
Hmm.
is this about? I have book one here. Tell us, bring us in into this journey because they're going extremely like as you write, your genres kind of shift. What is this one about? And what is the genre?
Well, I'm going to explain this a little bit differently than probably what you're looking for.
I'm good.
The Call to Duty is part of the Holy Flame trilogy.
Okay.
The Holy Flame trilogy, the Grace Restored series, which has Seasons of Change, which we've already mentioned,
Yep.
and Strength from Within is a standalone. Those 3 books are going on at the same time. And then there's a 20-year jump, which is where the Divine Legacy series comes into play. Those
Nice.
series and books, the characters literally cross over storylines. So you can get a different part of a character story in a different series. So the Grace Restored series is the one I was just talking about. Has a lot of police. and FBI. The Holy Film Trilogy has firefighting and military. Um, then Divine Legacy series. The basic thread that goes through all of them is what I call Team Angel, which is ANGEL is available to nurture God's eternal love. This is a unit that's made up of different people from around the world, and they get their assignments from Michael the Archangel, who ships them out in the world to help people. So the Divine Legacy, when it comes, it's the kids from those other three series who are taking over the angels. And so can you imagine like college age people taking over something as huge as this Divine Legacy? It kind of all
No.
sorts of fun happens, including what I call an international incident angel style. So basically, like I said, they all kind of thread together.
I have right now the Call of Duty. I'm pressing in the chat for anybody who's watching. By the way, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I got Seasons of Change as well as the Divine Legacy. Where do these stories come from and how do you decide to bring them to life? Let's bring that conversation up.
Well, okay, the Team Angel series was my first set of books. That's the what if question of basically in those series is the spiritual realm crosses into the physical.
Okay.
So there's dark, there's light, there's angels, and there's demons on this plane. So what would happen if they actually operated on this plane of existence? Would people, a lot of times Christians will look at spiritual warfare and be like, well, I like the angel part, but I don't like the other part. But
Okay.
there's balance in this, and this is a real thing to look at. One of the people said that Angels Among Us, which is the third book in the Holy Flame trilogy, is a spiritual reality check.
That's a good thing
So
to say.
yeah, that's the what if question is what would happen if it was being dealt with on this plane?
When you're creating this, because you're going from a lot of Christian fantasy, and you said it's a Christian fantasy that most people are not familiar. What are you trying to
Yeah, I
bring to?
tell people it's not your mama's Christian fiction.
What does that mean for people that are not familiar with? And that the term itself, I mean, like, ooh, what does that mean? How do they take it? What do they want? What can they expect out of this?
Well, a lot of times Christian fiction is this pretty little box with a beautiful bow. Once they're saved, they never backslide. Everything is straight on board. Well, my characters trip, fall flat on their face. I mean, like epic failures. And God picks them up, dusts them off, and sends them off again. And to me, I'm a realistic Christian. This stuff happens. And so I try to present like real life stuff in ways that people may not have thought of it. For example, the international incident angel style that's the Divine Legacy has to do with sex trade. In Forever Fall, there's a 15-year-old girl that got pregnant. So instead of an abortion, what does the other side of this look like? And so I'm not going to explain what happens, but you got to figure it out yourself. But I'm not afraid to tackle a lot of situations.
It's interesting because a lot of times we're thinking, it's supposed to be nice and pretty, and it's supposed to be a nice little ribbon, and it's supposed to be very kind of like clean and easy to fix. So when you're
Mhm.
adding all these issues to the picture, it makes people go, ooh, wow, that's not what I was expected. And you have a lot of action,
Mhm.
something that most people don't think about when they think of Christian fiction. So when you started on this journey, what message do you wanted to give to people?
Well, first of all, um, Christianity is life is life. If you're a Christian, it just kind of adjusts how you respond to it. So that's kind of how I look at it that way as far as realistic fiction. As far as the books themselves, when my husband and I decided to publish the books, we made a deal with God. God and I have a deal
I like that.
that I will write the books and we will publish the books and he gets the books into the hands of those who need it.
Very
And
nice.
so that's where we go.
I like that take, and I like making it very much for anybody who's read Deepak Chopra's Seven Laws, Seven Habits. Seven laws of spirituality. One of his laws is the laws of detachment, and as you're
Mhm.
giving it to God, you're giving it to the universe. Let it be whatever it needs to be. So I
Mhm.
love how beautiful you did it, and I love the fact that you do have an agreement. Whoever's
Yeah.
supposed to get these books is going to get them. Here you go.
Mhm. And I
Absolutely
don't
love it.
worry about it. But I love attacking moral questions. So, for example, the book I'm working on right now that's going to be coming out next has to do where a fire marshal falls in love with an arsonist before he realizes it's her.
Ooh.
So, what do you do?
And what happens when you find out that this is the person? Love once you love somebody, do you stop loving them because they're like
Do you
those
turn
people?
her in? What do you do?
Ooh, that's a tough one. So
So I'm all for more questions.
I like how you post the questions and let people kind of explore them. Because every
Mhm.
once in a while, I'm sure we're questioning like, ooh, what would I do? How would I deal with this? So
Well, like for example, the chain reaction. You know, should they be potentially helping this family to not get on the airplane? This is one of her struggles. Are they going against God's plan, or are they helping God's plan by helping them to not get on the plane? So it's like, what can you change? What should you change? Should you change anything? And so she kind of struggles with that when she realizes, exactly the implications, spiritual implications of what they're doing. And then the other question is, would they still exist by the time everything shook out?
that's such. I've been wondering to ask you this as you explore this idea because, as the title says, chain reaction. By the way, this is
Mhm.
brand new release from the fabulous Miss CJ. And I'm bringing it back on the screen for everybody. This is the book that we're so excited. Congratulations again.
Thank
It's
you.
all this idea of if you change something, how does that butterfly effect? What is going to happen at
Mhm.
the end? So when you were
Well,
creating
at
that,
one point, she mentions the butterfly effect, and he honestly, research has proven that it actually is wrong. So he's like, yeah, they already debunked that. But then she's like, do you need to get permission to do this? Because you're going back in time and messing with stuff. He goes, well, it's kind of hard to get permission from somebody considering I'm the one that invented it. So she's traveling with the inventor.
okay.
But then the moral question is, should they change? And if they change, how is it going to really affect their family line? And again, are they going to still be there when it's all done?
So the question that I have for us interviewers, are you going to answer the question or are you just going to leave us hanging? How is that going to play out in this book? Do we get some answers?
You got to read the book to find out. It's only 99 cents on Kindle right now. So grab
Guys,
it while you can.
for everybody watching and listening and enjoying this interview with this amazing author, you might want to pick this up because it
Mhm.
might not be 99 cents for a very long time. So make sure you grab a copy. So,
Yep.
darling, I have one more series that I want to talk to you guys about as I spin the carousel very, very quickly. Let's talk about your children's series. How this
Okay.
came about and what is it? Because right now I'm looking at your new book from Chief and Sarge, A Day of
Mhm.
the Races. Let's talk about this series.
Well, I am not a children's book author. In case you can tell, I'm big people book heavy. I explain them as either big people book or little people books. But I love monkeys.
Okay.
And we went to one of the bases. My husband's retired Navy senior chief. He worked with the Marines being a corpsman. And so we were at the military base, I think in Pendleton, and we found this little monkey with a little USMC kerchief. So, in honor of the Marines, we named him Sarge. And so, I'm kind of a little bit quirky. And so we took pictures of him doing strange things, things that kids would love to get into, but they couldn't because they're kids and they're small, but they wanted to investigate it. And just different things. And people fell in love with Sarge. And I'm like, well, he needs a brother.
Aww.
So we got a koala. And so we named him Chief after Trevor was a Navy senior chief. So we named him Chief. So we have Chief and Sarge. They are just like their animal counterparts. Sarge is the hyper, always getting in trouble type little monkey. And Chief is kind of the laid back one trying to keep him out of trouble, but usually Sarge gets him in trouble. And so we would take pictures like we went to the USS Kidd, we went on a cruise, we went to different bases of them just getting into stuff and exploring. People fell in love with them. So when we took them on the cruise, we took them on 2 cruises. And actually, the hostess was the same for both cruises, and she recognized us because of Chief and Sarge. And so we had pictures taken with the different people that worked on the ship, in the ports, and all that stuff. So that, of course, was the first book. That book has actually won 2 awards. One for Best Children's Travel. Another one is for third place for children ages 6 to 12, I think.
Okay.
And then the second one was A Day in the Race as a Lesson in Friendship. And I changed illustrators at that point. Davy Jones, who does Charmy's Army comics, is my illustrator now. And he allowed me, because he penciled each one, allowed me to go deeper into the characters. And so Sarge learns a lesson at Chief's expense.
Ooh.
But yeah, what I've done with this one is, from doing this point forward, is there's going to be like a specific lesson in each book that they have to learn. And this one, A Day in the Race, is a lesson in friendship, actually just won the International Purple Dragonfly Award. So I'm pretty excited about
Congratulations.
that. Thank you. But one other thing that I do is I don't want to leave out, the older kids. So there are fun facts in the back of the book.
Okay.
So I have a friend who gave it to her kids, and her kids' family do trivia questions with what's in the back of the book. And there's always a safety page too.
What is the safety page? What are you covering that?
Well, for example, in cruising, it had to do with life jackets.
Okay.
And A Day at the Race's lesson in friendship had to do with ear protection.
I have a quick comment in the chat from Richard from San Diego. He mentions Oceanside, so I'm glad that it's put in there. So I think you were talking earlier, so I kind of like, ooh.
Hmm.
So I wanted to mention. So for your children's books, as you go on to these lessons, how many more do you see yourself creating? Or are you just going to go with the
As
whims?
many as Davy will continue to let me do.
That's
The
a good way to
next
put
one
it.
is currently in his hands, and it has
Nice.
to do with the Grand Canyon, a lesson in differences.
Ooh. You
So
got multiple projects always going on. Let's be honest. You're never still. You have tons of things going. What is the next book that CJ is working on? Tell us about that.
that would be the one where the fire marshal falls in love with the arsonist.
And you actually only
So
have one going? Should I just be amazed that you only have one master plan?
sure.
That's a no.
Um, no. I am a little bit on kind of the fence and doing as well like a Sands of Time series to dive in a little bit more into each of the characters. So,
Okay.
for example, the professor and his daughter are one book. The two nurses are one book. In each of the kids, there's like two per book. It kind of goes a little bit more into their story, either after the point or a little bit before and a little bit after.
Okay.
So that's kind of in the works, sort of thing. And if you read the back of Out of Time, Holly is the no, yeah, Holly's the one that's writing it, and she says there's going to be more in there.
And like.
So kind of puts it forward a little bit. Somebody asked if I was going to do more of Chain Reaction. I may, because she mentions to her husband that they can go on a trip,
Ooh, I
and
like.
her husband's a history professor at a
Okay.
college. So you never know.
You are also a publisher. Let's be honest. You got
Hmm.
multiple hats, multiple things, and you kind of hinted at the beginning. So I know I don't have it in the carousel, but I wanted to tell us about it. You do an amazing anthology, and not just because I'm in it. I just think it's amazing every year. Let's just say it out there for Christmas. Where did this
Hmm.
idea come from? Because you and Lydia are putting so much work. You guys are not only publishing your own books, you're publishing other people's books. Where did this idea for this anthology and this press come from?
That was well, it was all sister's idea. We wanted to do our own books, and she kept going, "It's not that hard. It's not that hard. We can do this." I'm like, "Okay," but I hated the formatting part. I loved the marketing part, and so we came up with the idea of any authors that came to us, we wanted to teach them how to market, because that's the biggest pain for most authors is they don't know how to do it. So we republished all of our books under the Texas Sisters Press. And then she goes, "Well, what if we try like an anthology?" I said, "Okay." So we looked for some of the most eclectic mix of stories for holiday that we can find. And we love stories that are unique. And so for the first year, I believe we had a kaiju Christmas, we had Santa versus Satan, a psychotic elf. There were some heartwarming stories. Book two, we had, I think, speed dating was one of them. Um, Message with St. Peter by somebody we know and love. And hers were cracking us up, and they're still cracking us up for this year. Um, and then what I do with them is a lot of my short stories have to do with my other series.
I
So
like.
I had initially written Christmas Angels for the anthology, but it was too big. But I mean, think about it. It's the Team Angel series is huge anyway. There's no way I could have made it 3,500 to 7,500 words. I just couldn't. So I turned that into novella. but the story that I wrote has to actually do with the book that's going to be coming out about the fire marshal and the arsonist.
Nice.
And so that short story is attached to that one. Book two's second anthology is attached to the Sands of Time trilogy. That particular
Nice.
short story has to do with that. This one has to do with chain reactions where they go back in 1650 Ireland. So they're kind of standalones, but you can read them together.
It's all part of
But
your
we,
universe.
yeah, but we like to do it because we get some fully accomplished authors like yourself, and then we get some who have never published before. And so the first two had a person that was never published before. This one, all of them are authors. Some of them are
Okay.
new to us, but we have this huge book launch party where everybody can come and they can win prizes because each of the authors bring a prize. So, it's a Christmas gift from all of our authors to those who are watching and who would like to join in.
I usually, for everybody, just to give it a huge plug, because it's going to be on my page if you guys will follow me. Love doing anthologies. It's a good break from doing novels and it
Mhm.
gives me something different. What I did for this collection, if anybody's curious, is they're only unique here. So you're not going to find this stories anywhere else from me right now. And they're all very focused on a very what if you went to heaven but never actually went to heaven? She's at the gates and you met St. Peter. So this is all
Mhm.
about St. Peter's adventures at the gate or lack of
And they're
support at
cute.
the gate. So I think my
Right?
editor, yes, my editor loved them. She goes, I don't understand how you can have really cute, sweet little anthology pieces and everything else has blown up in death. I was like keeping
It's
you
a
on your toes.
challenge.
Oh my God.
It's like me writing big people books, what I write, and then I've got children's books.
Exactly. It is switching it up for everybody. So she thinks is absolutely hysterical. So yes,
Mhm.
one last thing for
But
anybody.
wait, to
Yes.
answer your question though,
Yes.
anybody who is interested, we are taking them for Texas Sisters Press. It's texassisterspress.com, and just be noted that it is a hybrid publishing press.
I love it. So, my dear friend, for anybody watching, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do so you don't miss anything. We have amazing authors coming every week, same time, 7:30 Eastern Time, 6:30 Central. So you don't want to miss another one. Every week's a little different. It's a little bit more exciting. It's a lot of fun, and you get to hear first what's coming out from authors from everywhere. So for anybody who's interested, the fabulous Miss CJ has been on my podcast as well. So you're going to hear a little bit more of her stories. The link to the podcast is here as well, so make sure you don't miss it. So, my love, mwah, congratulations again.
Thank you so much. And for anybody who wants to learn more about me, you can find me at CJ Peterson Writes, CJPetersonWrites. And thank you so much, DC, for having me back on. It is truly an honor to be on your show.
Oh, it is always such a blast. Thank you, sweetie, for being here, for joining us, for letting us celebrate this release with you. To our viewers,
99 cents on Kindle.
don't forget that it's 99 cents. It is on sale. Make sure you guys grab a copy. Guys, I will be back next week with another amazing release for everybody who's watching, so you don't want to miss it. And remember, have an incredible night. Have an amazing day, everyone. And I'll see you guys again next week. Bye.